Hello and welcome to Baseball Barbacast, the only baseball podcast in the world, recording live from Jake's Bachelor Beach Blowout. I'm Jake Mintz. That's Jordan Shusterman. And that is true. If you're listening to this, you did not get invited to my bachelor party.
Yeah, tough bounce for you. The good news is we got a lot of those hats. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see Jake wearing. I'm not wearing mine because it felt a little weird to wear the same hat on the same podcast, but I could be wrong. And yeah, maybe we should auction off one of Jake's Bachelor Beach Blowout hats for charity. That would be, I don't know how much interest there would be in them, but again, if you're watching on YouTube, let us know, and you can at least pretend like you were here.
I can't wait to donate $6 to our local food bank. On this episode, we'll be talking about Mike Trout's unfortunate injury, Baltimore Orioles calling up Coby Mayo, recalling Jackson Holliday. I love the word recall. Oh, yeah, that guy.
Oh, right. We have him. Yeah.
The Chicago White Sox can't win a baseball game. And our favorite thing of the season, the Heart and Hustle Award winners. If you don't know what we're talking about, stay tuned. It's the best. Maybe this is a good transition, Jordan. Tomorrow morning at my bachelor party, we will be playing a softball game. There are 12 of us. Some of us played college sports. Some of us did not. Very few of us stretch regularly. And so I would say that the likelihood of some sort of soft tissue injury is high tomorrow. Such is the case for the greatest baseball player of our generation, Mike Nelson Trout.
Yes. So we have briefly mentioned this over the last couple weeks as it had appeared that Mr. Trout would be returning to our lives. We had, a string of guys coming off the IL that we were very excited to see, and Trout seemed to be one of them. Just to recall the injury that he had been dealing with this year after a very strong start to the season in April, when Trout was not just hitting well, he was running the bases. I wrote a story. I saw the Angels came to Cincinnati. I saw Mike Trout. I asked Ron Washington about what it was like to manage Mike Trout, and he was like, yeah, he looks like the guy now that I saw when he was a rookie, coming up playing against me when I was still managing in Texas, right? I mean, that's how far back, Trout's career extends.
He was on pace for his most steals since 2012, his rookie season. He had 6 steals over the first 29 games. Okay. That which is what we're talking about.
Doesn't sound like a lot. Doesn't sound like a lot of steals, but again, he had essentially stopped running in recent years, at least in
multiply 6 by 6, baby. That's 36.
No, I know,
okay,
but
that's a lot of steals.
But it might not show, but especially compared to what he had done recently, which is essentially stop running. It's not because he's not fast anymore, right? I mean, again, all the sprint speed, even with all the injuries, Mike Trout. So anyway, so April, it's like, all right, this is Trout, right? Okay, he's still striking out a lot, and we're still trying to figure out what his offensive, potential is here. Is it more power? Is it less on base? Whatever. And then he tears his meniscus at the end of April. He gets that confirmed at the beginning of May, and left meniscus. And it's like, all right, well, this is terrible because we've already dealt with so many Trout injuries. But it wasn't like, okay, well, we'll see Mike Trout again in a couple months. As I think we all feared, we were like, well, by the time he gets back, the Angels really are probably not going to be very relevant. And that turned out to be the case. However, it seemed like he was going to come back to the point where he was assigned to a rehab appearance in AAA Salt Lake. He goes to AAA Salt Lake. He appears. He does all kinds of media. All right, here we go. Mike Trout's coming back. He plays not even a full game. I think he gets one at bat. He strikes out. He plays in the field for 2 innings. He comes out of the game early. They are kind of like, no, we're just being cautious. He goes back to California. And then yesterday, it is revealed that he has suffered another tear in the same leg after undergoing our MRIs. And we get a statement from Trout. We get Perry Minasian with some very interesting quotes that I think we should talk about. But the basic thing here is, it's an all-time bummer. And we can kind of go big picture here with this. Because at this point we've done this already now so many times over the last few years that it's hard not to kind of zoom farther out. because we know even if Trout was healthy this year, of course, it would be nice to see him on an MVP ballot again, but he would still be playing on a crappy Angels team again. So when you saw this news, what was the first thing that kind of hit you?
Each additional Trout injury in each additional Trout injury plague season is just kind of piles on to the story of Mike Trout's 30s, the second half of his career, because he's the best player in the world from 2012 to 2020. 2021, he has a calf injury that keeps him out for a significant period of time. 2022, he's very good and plays like 120-ish games, has a back issue. 2023, a hand issue. And now we have the knee injury for 2024. I think it's very easy to try and play a what-if game with Mike Trout, right? What if he had stayed healthy? What could those career numbers have been? And I think that is almost a disservice, because throwing what if on Mike Trout forgets what he did, what he was. Okay? We saw it. We were lucky enough to witness this greatness for 9 seasons. As great of a 9-year stretch as anybody in baseball history has ever had. And I think what ifing that is kind of warped. We should be what ifing Jason Neighborgall or Mark Pryor, right? That's the what if. The what if is the players who were tantalizing and never achieved that greatness. Mike Trout did it. Now, he didn't do it for 20 years, but guess what? People don't. And the obvious comparison here is Ken Griffey Jr., who was dominant for his 20s, very good production-wise, but injury-plagued throughout his 30s. Ken Griffey Jr. Is a legend. He is a Hall of Famer. He is still in baseball ads all the time. He was more culturally significant than Mike Trout for a multitude of reasons. But from a production standpoint, we have seen this story before. And so I am both saddened by the fact that there are baseball fans of a certain age that will only experience Mike Trout as a broken husk of a thing. There are people who never got to see what it was at the peak. However, Jordan, you and I, we are not those people. We saw it. We lived it. We witnessed it. And I feel lucky.
Yeah. And once again, as we've referenced a few times in random contexts, to anyone listening to this under the age of 14,
go climb a crane.
that maybe doesn't remember as much what it was. And this is when we've talked about this with Bryce Harper too, especially because they came up at the same time, right? But like those two players have spanned and defined our existence in this space of talking and thinking about baseball every day. Because truly, right? When Trout debuts in 11, that's really when it starts for both of us. I mean, certainly for me. I'm not going to speak for you, but I've said this on the show before, but my baseball fandom, of course, Sammy Sosa was my favorite player when I'm 5, but I'm not thinking about baseball as my number one passion and hobby until really high school, right? Really 2010, 2009, 10, 11. And so that since then, all I know is that Mike Trout is at the top. And so we've already started to grapple with this over the last few years as he's gone through. And of course, the most simple thing that is so troubling is how many different injuries, right? It's the fact that we're really filling it up, and that we're filling up the scouting report of, oh yeah, that's a problem, and that's a problem, and that's a problem, and that's a problem, in the way that it used to be, oh yeah, Mike Trout's the best at that, and he's the best at that, and he's the best at that, and he's the best at that. Now it's like, oh yeah, what hasn't he injured at this point? And this is a guy that's still only just turned 32. And I think the comparison to Griffey, while obviously we are not necessarily as qualified to, because again, for us, it's there's some irony there, right? We remember a little bit the end, right, of Griffey, and people tell me, and again, for me too, right? I'm a Mariners fan. It's not because of Griffey, and it's not because I don't think Griffey's the coolest person ever, but I don't remember that. I wasn't a Mariners fan when I was 2 and 3. But you understand what he meant, and when you just look at the numbers, through age 30, Griffey's counting stats are even more so just because he played even more and was so consistent from a power standpoint. But on a rate basis, OPS wise, Trout's far beyond WAR. Like he's far beyond. You know, he was in a class of his own. We've said it. You've seen many smart people say it before. You know, through the age 23, through age 24, through age 25, he was at the top. So that I think we have to accept is over. And now it's just a matter of what happens next. He has 6 years remaining on his contract at $37 million a year. And that's the other big what if, right? Is what would this have looked like on a team that was a little bit better at, you know, building teams?
And that is where my frustration lies today. That Mike Trout's freak body broke down in its 30s is not necessarily a surprise. It feels shocking because of how consistent he was for so long. This is a 6'2", 235-pound Ferrari. Their bodies break down. And so I don't think that is not really where the sadness is. Yes, I'd love to watch him play. I'd love to watch him compete. But it's what he didn't have the opportunity to do. And that is ever win a playoff game. He made one playoff appearance in 2014 in the ALDS, and they lost to the Royals. And the person this morning who should be embarrassed and ashamed is the owner of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, Artie Moreno. He had Mike Trout fall into his lap. Now, the people who scouted and helped Mike Trout develop, that is a success story, and they deserve credit for that. Artie Moreno, the owner of the team, does not deserve an iota of credit for Mike Trout becoming an Angel, right? However, he deserves scorn and criticism for failing to help Mike Trout, for failing to give Mike Trout the opportunity. He was popping 8, 9, 10 win seasons for a freaking decade, and his incompetent ownership group kept a revolving door of front offices and did not support them and did not allow that team to succeed. That will be that is the legacy to me that will leave me sad. That we never saw it. Even Bryce doesn't have his ring, right? But Bryce has his moments. He has his moments, and he has his moments because he was given the opportunity in part by the learners who own the Nationals and in part by John Middleton, who owns the Phillies, to put successful teams around Bryce Harper that gave him the opportunity to have these forever moments. Mike Trout will not have that. We will not be able to look back in 30 years on YouTube and watch iconic Mike Trout postseason clips. And that sucks.
Right. And that you can't undo. I agree with that. I think the last thing I would say about this, kind of spinning it forward, is right. You can't take away the incompetence that has involved the Angels being one of the worst teams in baseball over the last decade while Trout was still really good. And while I think the tone and the tense you're using of it's over is maybe a little bit dramatic, but the problem is that he's still there. And the other thing that you can give credit to Artie Moreno for, but also struggle with, is the fact that he was like, yeah, this is one of the best players of all time, so here's a lifetime contract that you absolutely cannot turn down. And that's what happened, right? He gave him the biggest contract ever, and Trout took it. And I don't want to relitigate that decision and everything, but that he obviously gave him a very, one of the biggest contracts ever, and that was that. Now, all that said, as we look forward, that's what's so upsetting, right? Is how, even if we are to project better health somehow moving forward, which I think logically we cannot. It doesn't mean he's never going to play again, but it just means it's going to be something he's going to keep dealing with.
DH.
How are we supposed to believe that this team is anywhere close to giving him that opportunity? And there's no reason to. There's just, it's very simple. They're so far away, no matter how much you like Logan O'Hoppe, and we love Logan O'Hoppe and Neto, whatever, this team is so far away from competing that I don't know how long I'm going to have to wait. And so either we're dreaming of a situation where he can get healthy and good enough and the team is willing to get rid of him, or that he's willing to ask to leave, which we have not seen anything close to yet, to where he ends up finding his way to a situation where he can, win on another team somewhere. But as for the Angels, it would be one thing if the Angels were suddenly figuring it out right as Trout is getting injured all the time. but it's basically the opposite. They somehow keep getting worse, or at least not improving anywhere near fast enough to make us think that it's going to happen in Anaheim. And I gotta say, as much as we all say the scoring towards are, like, it sucks. Like, I kind of do wish that they had a front office that was able, and an ownership that was able to get him back there so that his loyalty would pay off in some way. But I just have no reason to believe that's going to happen.
And I think Trout's loyalty is commendable. I think that the size of the contract will become a story. We'll see dollars per games played.
Yeah.
But if that contract's put in front of you, you sign it. We all sign it. It's $426.5 million. You sign that. It's not even like a question, right? Yeah. Has that contract hampered the Angels' ability to build around him? Maybe. But if you're the type of owner who's going to give out $426.5 million, you better be ready and prepared to spend a little bit more to make the team good. He's not getting traded, okay? Anytime soon. I did get a text from a Major League Baseball player who I will keep anonymous for their own sake, asking, is Trout going to get traded at the deadline? And maybe this was too harsh. I responded, are you dumb?
Yeah. This would be a tough. You think trading Garrett Crochet is complicated?
Yeah. Trout's loyalty to the place or to the contract, whatever it is, whatever is keeping him from asking to be traded, is a very understandable human reaction. Whether he wants to figure it out there, he has a house there, he has a life there, the money's there. No team is going to want to trade for that contract. If he enters a new place, that could hamstring a roster. Like, I don't fault Mike Trout for his fealty to the location and to the organization. I think that that's fine. It's just, in whatever the reasons, man, in 20 years, it's just a freaking bummer to look back on, dude. It's a bummer.
I don't want to skip over this, and then we'll move on to the Orioles. Perry Minasian, who spoke to the media after this about this, Trout put out a very straightforward statement, heartbreaking, all those things, and obviously we feel for him. Perry Minasian quote about this: nobody wants to play more. Nobody cares about this building, this fan base, this team more than he does. Quote, he's going to come back, have a normal offseason, and come back next season and hit 70 home runs and win MVP. Book it.
Who said this?
The GM of the Angels said that. Book it.
Who I think, I mean, if I had to bet, won't be the GM of the Angels next year.
But that's why, this is great. Because Perry at this point is just like, what are you gonna tell me I'm wrong? Because this is like a Hail Mary to make him look to somehow be like, yeah, no, I try. But it's like, yeah, of course. And quote continues, think he's gonna come back with a vengeance. I think he's going to be as good as he's ever been. Listen, I mean, you can put Trout in the like LeBron category of like never underestimate the heart of one of the best players in the history of the universe, right? That's in play. However,
I'm going to doubt the physicality and the endurance of one of the best players in the universe. It has nothing to do with Mike Trout's heart and his hustle. Okay, it has everything to do with his frame.
I understand that, right? But I it's more of a coin of phrase, and obviously it does not have the durability of a LeBron James. But I just mean when we're talking about the talent that has never been in question. However, just the quote of like a real baseball person saying, I know this is an emotional situation and you're trying to like spin it in a positive way, but to say on the record, he's going to hit 70 homers and win MVP, book it. I also like that he's going to win 70 home runs and win MVP. It's like, yeah, dude, I'm pretty sure if he hits 70 home runs, he'll probably win MVP. I mean, I guess if the Angels are still bad, maybe it'll be a little hard, but I think those two things will probably go together if he's right.
I'll take the under on 70 home runs. That's me personally. I'll do it with any player.
Hater.
No disrespect to Perry. But that's the Mike Trout deal. It's a bummer. Don't be one of those people who like tweets overpaid at like a highlight of him. Just don't be that person. I hope that the people listening to that are not those people. Jordan, let's take a quick break, actually. And when we return, we'll talk about the Orioles roster shuffle. We'll talk about the heart and the hustle in us all. And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. Jake Mintz, Jordan Shusterman. There was a flurry of moves in Baltimore at the deadline. Players going left and right. Christian Pache, who the Orioles traded for from the Phillies, has already been designated for assignment by the Birds. Thank you for your contributions, Christian. We appreciate it.
I just want to say, Pache getting DFA'd before Eloy. Like Eloy, I don't even think has appeared in a game yet, but I believe he has been added to the active roster. But that is already in and of itself kind of an interesting sequence. Again, I don't know what I'm expecting from Eloy here, but yeah, Pache. I mean, maybe someone will claim him. I don't know.
The important thing here is that Jordan Westberg, their third baseman, second baseman, who was an all-star, having a sensational season, he broke his hand earlier this week. That happened after Jackson Holliday, top prospect, was called back up. Jackson Holliday, who had a grand slam in his first game back. Oh boy, that was an electric moment. The ball clattering down onto Utah Street. All the people saying they should have traded him. Jackson Holliday says, trade this 439-foot home run. And then today, the Orioles are calling up Coby Mayo, where if you're going to pronounce it like you're not from Mount Washington, Coby Mayo, who might as well be named Glenn Burney. His name is so perfect to say with a Baltimore accent. There's a lot to tackle here. I'd actually like to start with Mayo. Jordan, this is a player who the Orioles did not want to give up in trades. They prioritized him over some of like Austin Hayes. They were willing to trade away a proven everyday big leaguer in Austin Hayes for the chance at seeing what Coby Mayo can do. What type of player is Coby Mayo, and why should Orioles fans and non-Orioles fans be interested and excited in his debut?
Yeah, so obviously in this Orioles system, it's sometimes hard to keep track of all of them and keep track of them. And really what is so interesting is knowing, like, I would love to know, I made a joke recently about, it'd be awesome to know, who are the players around the league that the Rays think are magically awesome, even though you don't know about them yet. I think another piece of internal baseball team information that I would love to know is actually how do the Orioles line up all of these guys in terms of like, who do they actually believe has the highest ceiling between, or especially if you asked this question like 2 years ago, right? Between Gunnar, between Adley, between Jackson Holliday, between Mayo, between Kerstad, between Cowser, between because we can only Norby, right? We find out, okay, we're willing to trade Connor Norby for Trevor Rogers. Like, we just don't know.
You could say that you love all your children equally, but you don't. You can't.
Right.
That's not how life works.
Yes. And so, but as always, if you ask Mike Elias on the record, he'll be like, they're all very talented. We really believe in all of them, but you got to go by actions louder than words. And them not trading Coby Mayo over these, this stretch in a way that even more so than Jackson Holliday, it's not that hard to explain why they wouldn't want to trade Jackson Holliday. He was the number one pick and he was the top prospect in baseball. But Mayo seemed like someone that was such an easy piece to just throw in as such a good headliner because all he's done since he got into the minor leagues is hit. The power has gone up. The plate discipline has only improved. This is a guy who, as an amateur, 2020 draft, right? So the 2020 draft is already interesting in and of itself. But a high schooler in Florida who was pretty well known just because he was gigantic and had huge raw power. But it was like, is this someone that is going to actually become a good overall hitter? Surprise, surprise, the Orioles were able to help him do that. And all he's done, since he became a professional is rake to the point where, he was in AAA last year, like teeing off, right, as a 21-year-old. So no surprise when he goes back there this year, he just keeps on keeping on. This is a guy that's been hitting 300 this year, right? This is not just a bulky slugger. Now, it is an interesting look. It is not the prettiest operation, but it obviously works for him, and he's 22, and it's the kind of thing that talk about if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It'll be interesting to see how it translates to the big leagues, but here they go again. This is another like legitimate impact bat that could make, add to this lineup once again.
I'm curious where he's going to play defensively. Do you have an idea?
So I checked that. So again, when you're looking at all these infielders, you're wondering where is he going to fit? He has essentially exclusively stayed in the infield. They have not bounced around, but he has been playing more first base recently. So again, it's like, are we putting him at third? Now that Westberg's hurt, because the offensive ceiling with him is certainly higher than a Ramon Arias, Or are we finding ways to have him play more first base? I mean, he still played a good amount of third this year. I just don't know the comfort level there. But long term, I'd imagine they want him to stay in the infield. But we'll see. I mean, he's obviously a pretty big dude, and I don't think that the range in the outfield. I think they'd rather see what they have at third. But I don't know. It'll be and where that fits in with the right-handed DH and Eloy and all those things. I don't know.
The most interesting thing about him as a player, most swings are outies in that a hitter's front foot lands closer to the pitcher than where it starts. They are moving towards the pitcher, right? Or their foot lands right where it started. Coby Mayo is one of the few players I have ever seen whose front foot lands closer to his back foot when it hits the ground. Then it's super bizarre. He's basically stepping his front foot towards his back foot, landing and swinging. As his weight is moving forward off his backside. Very bizarre look. Very interesting hitter. Can't wait to see how it translates to the big leagues. Quickly on the return of Jackson Holliday. I mean, it's not that compelling. I mean, it is compelling, but it's not that complicated. He was so overwhelmed in his early stint, just kind of talking to people that were around it. He was not comfortable. It's not that he wasn't prepared. It was a lot. It was a lot to handle, understandably. And I think it kind of swamped him a little bit. Hopefully him coming up back where it's not the biggest story in the sport will make things a little bit easier for him. We've already seen kind of an increased comfort level there.
Yeah. The last thing, obviously the Grand Slam was an incredible moment. I think that with his return with Westbrook's injury, just like big picture Orioles now, as we head towards, down the stretch, I mean, we've been kind of asking this same question for 2 years, and I know that it is going to depend on the handedness of the pitcher that they're facing, but I just can't wait to see what is their best lineup, for that first postseason game. What does that look like? Has Mayo done enough to be starting in the first postseason game? Has Jackson Holliday done enough to be starting the first postseason game if everybody is healthy? I think that is what I'm most curious to see, how they kind of shuffle down the stretch, let alone if they are, fending off the Yankees, right? I mean, that it's not just talking about the postseason. I mean, we'll see them in October in some form, but how they choose to manage that and how they not only just differentiate the playing time, but also who they end up trusting, I think is going to be really, really, really interesting. Also, but by the way, it's like Kowser's been unbelievable, right? Like they have these other guys that there's just not enough time to talk about all of them. There's a lot of cushion. So like the stakes maybe aren't that high for Mayo and Holliday in the same way, but there's versions where they play themselves into needing to be in the lineup, and that is obviously also compelling.
Eloy Jimenez is going to start the first Orioles playoff game against Nestor Cortez, and I'm going to burn my computer down. Maybe the Orioles could fix him. Enough about the Baltimore Birds. Let's talk about the two most important things in the sport of baseball. And that's how much heart you got and how much hustle you have. The Heart and Hustle Award winners were announced yesterday. There was one winner for each team. If you're listening to this podcast and you're saying, what is the Heart and Hustle Award? I am now going to read you what it is. The MLB Players Alumni Association, that is important. These are former players. Vote on the active players who demonstrate a passion for the game of baseball, who best embody the value, spirit, and traditions of the game. One player from each major league team is chosen by the committees based on their passion, desire, and work ethic demonstrated both on and off the field. As the season draws to a close, alumni and active players will vote to select a final winner from the 30-team nominees. Does that sound vague and confusing? Well, you know what? It freaking is. If I list the previous winners, though, it might make things a little bit easier to understand. There is no better way to describe this award than to say that Craig Biggio is the only person who's ever won it in back-to-back seasons. He won it in 06 and 07 after David Eckstein won it in 2005. Grady Sizemore, 08. Albert Pujols, 09. Holliday in 2010. Torrey Hunter, 2011. Mike Trout, 2012. Dustin Pedroia, 13. That makes sense. Josh Harrison, 14. That makes sense. Anthony Rizzo, Todd Frazier, Brett Gardner, Mookie Betts, Howie Kendrick, Ozzie Albies, Paul Goldschmidt, and Marcus Semien in 2023. This press release says no award was presented in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is silly. I mean, we were playing ball, were we not?
Not only were we playing ball, was there ever a season that if you were able to provide both heart and hustle, it was as remarkable as ever? I mean, if you were hustling with no fans, you should be
Man.
recognized as such. So that's a little bit.
We should go back.
That's a little bit strange.
And we should go back retroactively and award the Heart and Hustle nominees for the 2020 season. Rewatch the whole season in the winter just for that.
Listen,
so what we're gonna do?
Yeah. Go ahead.
What we're gonna do? The way we like to play this game is to guess who the heck got nominated for this nebulous, confusing award. I, in front of me, have the National League representatives. Jordan has the American League representatives in front of him. So we're going to guess the opposite. Jordan, why don't you go first? Let's go alphabetically, if that's possible, from the Arizona Diamondbacks down to the Washington Nationals. And we will begin with Arizona. Who is their Heart and Hustle Award nominee? You get one guess for each.
I'm going to guess Jake McCarthy.
Christian Walker.
Okay. All right. 0 for 1.
Atlanta Braves.
Ooh. I am going to go with, it's very hard to win this as a pitcher. So I'm generally going to pick position players. My Atlanta Braves pick is going to be Jared Kelenic.
Austin Riley. I'm going to tell you right now, as a hint, there are no pitchers on this list.
Okay.
Because pitchers don't have heart.
And guess really what? I'm going to tell you right now, there are no pitchers in the American League either.
Amazing.
So, okay. Yes. All right. Austin Riley. All right. Sure. Kelenic.
Chicago Cubs. Chicago Cubs.
I'm going to go with Ian Horner.
Correct. Nico Horner is correct. 1 for 3. Cincinnati Reds.
Ooh. I am going to go with Ellie here, I think.
He's hustling, but not enough heart. Jonathan India.
I mean, India's the obvious pick, but that's disappointing. All right. LA did not win something. Okay. Who's next?
Colorado Rockies.
Doyle. Give me Doyle.
Easy.
All day long.
Lock. Brenton Doyle. Lock. 2, 4, 5. Los Angeles Dodgers.
This is an interesting one. Who has been? I'm gonna say that he has I'm gonna go with Teoscar. I'm gonna go with Teoscar.
Correct.
I don't think you could give it to one of the big three. Okay, all right, nice. I think he's very likable, and I think that all the players who you would normally maybe associate like Chris Taylor, they've just been so bad. Like Kike, they've just been so terrible that I don't think you could give them the award. So Teoscar, all right, I got it. Nice.
That's another great element of this award is you don't have to be good, but you can't stink.
Right.
The Miami Marlins.
Oh boy. Are they still on the team?
Yes.
Okay. This is really generally has just been John Birdie over and over. Man, I don't know. I guess I'll go with if he's still on the team. Oh, who's still on the team? Jake Berger?
It's Jake Berger. Yeah, you should have got that right away. But yes, it is Jake Berger. Milwaukee Brewers.
A lot of interesting picks here. I'm going to go with Bryce Terang.
Willie Adames.
Oh, okay.
New York Mets.
There's a lot of good picks there. New York Mets. Lindor.
Correct.
Yeah.
Philadelphia Phillies.
I'm going to go with Bohm.
This one's absolutely unhinged. Edmundo Sosa. I can't say why. It should be like Schwarber or Johan Rojas. But Edmundo Sosa is crazy.
Again, though, we learn from this. It always says, obviously this is fun podcast fodder. But especially since this is involving the MLBPA, you learn about players' reputations from awards like this. And people must love Edmundo Sosa. That's great. Okay. I never would have guessed, obviously.
Pittsburgh Pirates.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to go with Nick Gonzalez.
Brian Reynolds, San Diego Padres.
Oh, sorry. That's obvious. All right. San Diego Padres, there's some really good candidates here. I'm going to go Merrill.
Correct.
Yes. I feel good about that one.
San Francisco Giants.
San Francisco Giants. Oh, yucky. Ramos?
Matt Chapman.
Okay.
So much heart. So much hustle. St. Louis Cardinals.
All right. Oh, Cardinals. Brendan Donovan is like the guy here.
Lock it. Easy money.
Let's go, baby. All right. Feel good about that. Tommy Edmonds out of the way. So we got Brendan Donovan.
That's true. Tommy Edmonds should have won the Dodgers one, even though he hasn't played a game yet. Washington Nationals.
Ooh. Oh, man. I mean, I would have guessed Lane Thomas, but no, he hasn't played enough. So I'm just going to go with Abrams.
Ildemaro Vargas, who is sneaky important in that room.
He's definitely important in the room, but that's still even a more extreme version of the Sosa pick. Okay, wow. So how many did I get?
Horner, Doyle, Hernandez, Berger, Lindor, Merrill, Donovan. You went 7 for 15, my friend.
Okay. All right. So now, again, historically, when we've done this game, I have guessed all of them. So this is nice. This is nice to finally be able to turn it on you. We are now going to have Jake guess the American League. And we begin with your Baltimore Orioles.
Do we have to?
We do. And it's not Coby Mayo or Jackson Holliday. So there's your hint.
It's either Gunnar or Adley, and I'm going to say that it's Adley Rutschman.
You are incorrect. It is Gunnar Henderson, Boston Red Sox.
Jarren Duran.
I mean, that's one of the layups of the entire exercise. Yes, that's correct. Chicago White Sox, who's been hustling and has the most heart on maybe the worst team in baseball history.
I think it has to be Nicky Lopez, right?
It should be, but it is Andrew Vaughn.
That's nuts.
Who I think Andrew Vaughn has played the most games for this team, which like deserves an award in and of itself. Let me check that quickly because that's actually amazing. You know who's played the most games for the White Sox is Paul DeYoung. Andrew Vaughn has played the second most. Gavin Sheets. Anyway, you are wrong. It should be Nicky Lopez, but it is Andrew Vaughn. We move to the Cleveland Guardians.
It's either Steven Kwan or Jose Ramirez. Both are legitimate picks. I'll say Steven Kwan.
I also thought it would be Kwan. It is Jose Ramirez, who is still an excellent selection. So no beef there. Detroit Tigers.
This one is impossible. This one's impossible. I'm going to say Jake Rogers.
No, it is Riley Green, who is injured. So you might have been owning yourself for looking at the active roster, which I did not do. You're already giving yourself more of a hint. We move to the Houston Astros of Houston. Who you got for Houston?
It should be Chas McCormick. It's not Chas McCormick. I'm going to say it's Altuve.
Jeremy Pena. Kansas City Royals.
Easy lock, Bobby Witt Jr.
Yes. All right. So you've got the two layups so far in Duran and Witt. Let's see if you can go on a run here in the second half. Angels of Anaheim. It is not Mike Trout as much as he is trying to. We don't want him to get hurt hustling again. So what do you got for the Angels?
It should be Kevin Pillar. It really should be Kevin Pillar. It's not Kevin Pillar. I'm going to say it's Zach Neto.
No, Ohapi, who has been... Yeah, it's Ohapi. Minnesota Twins. This one, I like your chances. I think.
Picking Royce Lewis is insane because he's played like 7 games. But I will go with Carlos Santana.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. No, Willie Castro. Willie Castro really checks like all the boxes, and you should have gotten that one. New York Yankees.
I will go with Anthony Volpe.
There you go. Nice job. Okay, you got 3 here. We need a big performance with 5 teams left. The Oakland A's. Kind of a lot of sneaky good picks.
I mean, I was on the A's, man. Like,
but they bang, dude. We've been talking about it. But this home runs
award's not about.
It's not about home runs. It's about heart and hustle.
I'm gonna go with This is impossible.
Come on.
This is impossible.
Let's move it along.
Abraham Toro.
Wow, I love that guess. No, it is Max Schumann, who I think most people have not heard of. And an excuse to tell a Max Schumann story super quickly. I saw the A's play in Cleveland earlier this season. Max Schumann hit his first career home run, and he had a ton of family there because I believe he's from Michigan. And like you could hear, because it was not a very well attended game. Cleveland attendance has been good this year, but obviously that one was not very well attended. You could hear them like from the press box going absolutely nuts. It was, and it's not even like the press box is that low. It was one of my favorite moments of the season is his family and friends going wild over his first career home run. So shouts out to Max Schumann, heart and hustle, Seattle Mariners.
What MLB alumni know who the frick Max Schumann is? That is so stupid. Seattle Mariners is gonna be Cal Raleigh.
Yes, good job. You have now 4 correct, 3 remaining. Tampa Bay Rays.
Oh, gross. Tampa Bay Rays. I hope it's not Taylor Walls. I'm gonna say Josh Lowe.
Bad guess. Richie Palacios getting.
Oh heck yeah, dude!
Which is a great pick. Which is a great pick.
It's the right pick. Yeah.
2 left. Texas Rangers.
Marcus Semien forever.
Correct. Now you got 5. You cannot win, but you can get closer if you can get the Toronto Blue Jays.
Dalton Varsho.
Nice job. All right. So you ended up with 6. You got Jarren Duran. You got Bobby Witt Jr., you got Anthony Volpe, you got Cal Raleigh, Marcus Semien, and Dalton Varsho. But I will take the dub as the veteran of this game. I am not surprised that I was able to squeeze it out, but a valiant effort.
The toss-ups, the Gunnar Adley toss-up and the Stephen Kwan Jose Ramirez toss-up came back to bite me. Those could have gone any way. Happy with our performance here at Heart and Hustle. Email us. Let us know if you understand the qualifications for this award, because we would sure as hell love to know. Jordan, before we take a quick break, who you got? Who wins the whole thing? Who wins it all this year?
Oh, man. Who wins the whole thing? Okay, well, just looking at the American League ones that I am looking at right now, like, I mean, Bobby Witt's got to be the
Bobby Witt,
because, like, again, you basically are alternating between like best young breakout player that it's basically the Trout 2012 winner, right? That's kind of what the mold that we're talking about.
Bobby Witt Jr. is a strong pick. Brenton Doyle, sneaky dark horse to bring home the Heart and Hustle trophy, which the Heart and Hustle trophy should just be a pair of white baseball pants that are just dragged through the mud and not washed and sent to your mansion in a bag.
Yeah, doesn't seem like a Rocky has ever won, but I don't think a Royal has either. So you know what? Let's see who can stand out and make it happen.
Think about how much heart you need to be on the 2024 Rockies and not quit. Let's take a quick break, and when we get back, we will do the good, the bad, and the ugly. And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. Jake Mintz Jordan Shusterman. One thing good, one thing bad, and one thing ugly. I will begin with Brett freaking Phillips. Who is Brett Phillips? Brett Phillips is a goofball and a goober and a friend of the show, and was a, frankly, mediocre bench outfielder in the major leagues for 5 or 6 seasons. And the entire time, he was an utter delight, an upbeat individual who is one of those people where, like, you talk to Brett Phillips and then you leave and you're like, I enjoyed that interaction. And that was always the case. The issue with Brett Phillips is that he couldn't hit really at all. We first met Brett Phillips when he was in high A Lancaster with the Houston Astros. One of our favorite people. A video of him pitching went viral this week in the National Baseball Congress tournament, which deserves its own podcast, but we're not going to talk about it. He was throwing 97. He was throwing 97 miles an hour, and everyone was like, that's insane. And the Yankees signed him immediately and sent him to low A on the developmental list in the minors, and he will now develop and work his way up the chain to try and be a reliever. This is unequivocally good, whether he makes it or not. Brett Phillips was born to be a reliever, a man that goofy, that upbeat, that positive, that weird, that different, perfect reliever mentality. he pitched in the big leagues once and threw 93 as a position player, and I think he'll have a decent chance. We'll see how it goes, but we are cheering for Brett Phillips. From one reliever to another, Jordan, what is your good?
My good is Ben Joyce, and I'll be honest, I was a little skeptical about the Ben Joyce experiment. Ben Joyce, who kind of burst on the scene, the national scene at the University of Tennessee a couple years ago when he threw a reported pitch 105 miles an hour. Now, I was skeptical at the time that was actually a real thing. And then what has he done? Well, he has reached the big leagues very quickly. No surprise there since he is on the Angels. However, he has thrown the hardest pitch of this season. It is not Mason Miller that has thrown the hardest pitch this season. It has been Ben Joyce, who has thrown a pitch 104.5 miles an hour on StatCast. But the reason he is in good is not just because he throws hard. It's because he has 21 consecutive scoreless innings for the Los Angeles Angels. I know that these amazing innings are in some ways being somewhat wasted on this bad team. However, I mean, he's doing it. Like, this was basically what we hoped Ben Joyce could very quickly be in the big leagues. There were questions about, I mean, he has all kinds of sketchy medical things. Like, he had all kinds of injuries coming up, but he's healthy right now. He has even pitched back-to-back days and has succeeded. And so I'm just really impressed. Like, he's really put it together. He's generally throwing strikes, and he has a case for being the hardest thrower in the league alongside Mason Miller. He's thrown more pitches 102 miles an hour this season than Mason Miller has. Mason Miller, I think, still has the lead in just overall 100 miles an hour pitches. But Ben Joyce, who's only been up since, early June, I think he honestly probably does have a case for actually being the hardest thrower in baseball with Mason Miller and Joan Duran. And lately, he's also been very hard to hit.
What is bad? The Chicago White Sox are bad. And I'm going to just zoom in on Pedro Grifol here. I'm going to take my phone and pinch in. But it is just important to understand that they have lost 17 games in a row. They have not won a game since Joe Biden dropped out of the race. Okay, let's put that in context. They have fewer wins since July 12th than the American League All-Star team. They have not won a game since the break. The White Sox absolutely stink. And that is fine, right? Teams are bad. This is a bad team. They were kind of designed to be bad in some ways, and the rebuild's going to take a long time. My issue is that their manager, Pedro Grifol, is still treating this situation like they are like out there to compete and like be great. We're here to do greatness today. To his credit, Pedro Grifol was not brought in to be the manager of a bad team. He was brought in to be the manager of a good team. Those are two different types of managers, okay? What the White Sox need is a caretaker manager who's just there to like be good vibes and make sure everyone's like getting a little bit better every day. It doesn't matter if this team wins. Honestly, yes, you don't want to be the worst team in baseball history, but like if they lose 110 or 113, does that change the way we think about their season? Not really. And so my issue with Grifol is just he is a vibe suck. I know it's not great to be it's hard to be a vibe trampoline when you're losing 17 in a row. I get that, but this guy seems uniquely skilled to take any type of good energy and burn it absolutely immediately. So I think that's pretty bad.
Yeah, 2 different 14-game losing streaks in the same season is pretty difficult to kind of wrap my mind around, and especially the 0 wins in the second half. They are off to Minnesota for 3 games and then 3 games in Oakland. Those are their next 2 series. We will see if this losing streak will extend. Whether the streak extends to a record level, I mean, yeah, the 2003 Tigers, 119 losses, that is extremely in play. I know there is no difference between 110 losses and 113 losses. I would say there's some difference between 110 losses and 125 losses because we are
15
actually,
losses.
Yeah, you will be, yes, technically so. You will be the team that is now, you will replace the 2023 Tigers, right? When we talk about the worst teams ever, we're saying, the 2003 Tigers. Now we will say the 2024 White Sox.
And where do the 2024 White Sox finish their season? In Detroit.
Oh, wow, that's true. You think that the 03 Tigers should go to... Like, they should do a reunion.
Jeremy Bonderman, get out there. Mike Maroff.
Oh, man. Yeah, that would be amazing. 03 Tigers show up to the final series of the year. My bad. I'm not going to linger on this, partially because I don't have time to, and partially because it makes me sad. But Clayton Kershaw was very bad the other night. And not having a strikeout in a game when you're Clayton Kershaw is like super not good. So again, we've seen now his first start, it was like, oh yeah, this dude could grind his way through 5 innings in October. And then the next one is like, ooh, probably you don't want to do that. So I don't think Clayton Kershaw is bad, but no strikeouts for, I think, the first time or second time in his career in a long time, very, very long time since it has happened. I will qualify that as bad. What is your Uggla?
Christian Moore was drafted with the 8th overall pick by the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, a team that has a reputation for rocketing people up to the major leagues after they draft them. And we said, this doesn't make any sense in the context of the current Angels because they stink right now. Last year, they drafted Nolan Schanuel in the first round, and he was in the big leagues 17 minutes later. And that at least tracked logically because Shohei Ohtani was still around, and they were trying to win it. Christian Moore played 2 games in low A, where he had 2 doubles and a home run. And the Angels said, that's enough. And he is promoted to Double A Rocket City. He is already going to Double A, where you could argue that's maybe where he should have been to start. Like, he's a pretty advanced hitter. I understand that. But for this guy to be 2 leaps away from the major leagues less than a month after the draft is very Angels and very Uggla and just like unnecessary for me. Just let him fail a little bit. Maybe like a little bit after, like, if you're going to send a guy, let me just say this. If you're going to send a guy somewhere for 2 games, what's the point of sending them there at all?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I don't understand. Like, okay, great. He had 3 extra base hits in 2 games. Oh, he's ready. Like, no, he was, if you believed you were going to promote him after 2 games anyway, like what's logistically, why even bother send him to Inland Empire? It makes that, I guess it's because it's local. But now he will have it's just it's so bizarre.
So he's going to Alabama where he'll be a Rocket City trash panda. Jordan, what's Uggla for you, buddy?
From a national champion to a trash panda in a month, 2 months. 2 months, I guess. But shouts out to Christian Moore. I guess he'll be closer now back to the Vols fans can now go watch him in Rocket City. A little bit more convenient. Then Inland Empire. I will finish with an Uggla, just kind of wrapping up the trade deadline because I kind of referred to it, but having done the research and tracked this, I did tweet out this kind of sheet, but I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that there were 32 trades on Tuesday, which I do, from what I can tell, is a record. And I think when you look at the trends that I kind of posted out there, I know people said it was an underwhelming deadline, but to say that nothing happened is just objectively false. And I think that as we continue, like, I think we are going to keep seeing this. Now, it might be a flurry of moves that aren't necessarily the most exciting, but as we joked about the Marlins logistically, I think if we just build towards a degree where we are seeing 40 trades on the last few days of the deadline, I think that is still compelling, although it is also a little bit overwhelming for the casual fan to process. So I continue to be fascinated with how the deadline functions and processes. And I think that seeing 32 trades on deadline day, none of which blew anybody's socks off, is pretty Uggla.
That's the show. Enough talking about baseball. Let's go talk about baseball off the air. Jordan, thank you for doing the show with me. Thank you to Andrew Hartz for producing. My bachelor party begins now. We are going to play some softball and hang out.
Thank you all for listening. Thank you to producer Andrew Hartz. You can email us at baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's Jake Mintz. We're in the same house. Bye, everybody.